Welcome. This is Te Pouhere Sunday, for which we're preparing. I just want to say, if you want a more in-depth study from the Gospel Conversations into the, well, for want of a better word, the kaupapa of Te Pouhere, run back a couple of years, and we've explored it twice. This year, we're going to just focus a bit more on the Gospel reading, but a little bit of both. And with that in mind, welcome Joel and also Gillian from Otepoti Dunedin, Wendy from Whakaoriori Masterton in the Wairarapa, Gillian armed with background. Let's crack this passage open.
Well, this passage is one of those ones, it's just a small, tiny part of that massive, big farewell discourse that Jesus is delivering to his disciples, after that Last Supper meal, the night before he was arrested and crucified. So this is kind of like his last key words to his disciples. So everything in these 5 chapters is going to be really important, but this passage is really about love, which is a theme that is woven through that whole discourse. And it comes just after the other small section about the vine and the branches, which links into our one, because at the end of our passage, we come back to that idea of bearing fruit. So that's kind of quite interesting, where Jesus has said, abide in me, and now it's abide in my love. But also, I love that idea of the vine and the weaving of all the branches in there too, which, of course, thinking about Te Pouhere Sunday makes me think of that idea of that celebration of the 3 tikanga, the weaving together of these 3 tikanga and who we are as an Anglican church. So it'll be good to look more into that in more detail too as we go through.
Oh, there you are. You've kept us with a foot in both interests for this Sunday. So thanks, Gillian. Let's go straight away then to challenges. And Joel, if I can ask you what you find challenging.
I find the challenge for me is in the idea of following the commandment or the commandments, because there's 2 parts to this commandment. It's far more than just loving one another. We are commanded to love one another as Jesus has loved us or loved me. And it's so the challenge for me is to actually define exactly what Jesus's love for me means, so I can then go through and model it in my own life, because it's far more than just love for one another. It's a deeper, greater love which defines us. And there's also another challenge. One thing I do find challenging with this reading is that it's been misused so much in the past. It's been used to glorify war, and it's also used in World War II as a recruiting campaign from our pulpits to get men to go to war and die. And that's one thing I find very challenging about this piece of scripture, is to turn it round and put it back in the direction that it was written in.
Well, Joel, thank you. We're going to have to come a long way back from that. Let's come back to that and find if there's a way back. But Wendy, what do you find challenging?
This idea about the completeness of joy, which is found through Jesus' joy in his relationship with his Father, but also his joy in relationship with me, and that then makes my joy complete. And so I love reading that passage out loud, but also that we change from being, we're no longer servants, we are friends. And when we have friendship with one another, we have responsibilities to one another, we have obligations, I guess, and that we move from that lovely, beautiful, intimate relationship that I like. And the other challenge I was thinking about, just as in relation to Te Pouhere, is I thought about what it means to be on the floor of General Synod for and how those men and women came to that decision. And it wasn't just one General Synod that they came to, it was a whole bunch of them that went before, and they came to this decision that they would make this 3 tikanga church. And I wonder what they would think of it now, as do they have joy and pride in the decisions they made to develop this 3 tikanga church?
Lovely thought. All right, and we were commenting just before we turned the microphones on, or turned the recording on, how nice it is in a setting like this to come together with that sense of friendship, but we only represent one tikanga here today. Gillian, for you, what is challenging?
Yeah, a bit like Joel, I found the challenge in that idea of keeping these commandments. Like, Jesus says, in verse 10, if you keep my commandments, you'll remain in my love, which he also had said earlier in chapter 14. And it's like, oh, what is this commandment? Because the other gospels have quite a few commandments, love your enemies, turn the other cheek, lots of things. But in John, there is actually only one commandment, and it is this one, to love one another. So that indicates how important it is in terms of that concept of that idea of a commandment. And thinking about love and the challenge of that as a verb, as an action, not sort of just a nice feeling, but something that is actually shown through its actions. And yeah, how we might do that in our three Tekka context in terms of, having that joy in one another, but also that empowerment of one another, laying down our lives for each other, sharing our resources together, and that, like you said, Wendy, that sense of obligations and that friendship actually has. Yeah, there's a challenge there still, I think.
Okay, thank you. Those are good challenges, and we might squirm a little, which does us no harm. But Wendy, I'm going to ask you after the squirming if we can find some good news.
The good news is that in this relationship that we have, that Jesus has already come to us with that love. He's offering us that love. The good news is that there's a movement in it, that it requires obedience, yes, but it also requires movement. First to him, as we moved in relationship to him, but then that takes us out in a movement towards the world. And so, we have this beautiful picture of, because of that love, because of that abiding in him, the beautiful picture of the vine and the fruit, we then go out in order to live that friendship, that relationship of God through Christ. And of course, his death is the great act of love.
Thanks, Wendy. And abide is not a static word, is it, in John's telling of the gospel? Gillian, what's good news for you?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that word abide as well, and remain, continue, dwell, sojourn, rest, endure, and another definition, to be in a close and settled union. And that's quite a cool phrase, I think, in terms of this idea of God abiding with us. And I came across the concept, which I'd never heard before because it was Trinity Sunday recently. And I heard this concept called quatrinity, of a four, that John's gospel seems to really kind of touch on, this idea that there's this intimate relationship, as Wendy said, between like God and Jesus and the Spirit, but also the believer. That in chapter 14, Jesus says that if you love me and obey my teaching, the Father and I will come and make our home with you, this idea of dwelling and abiding. And it's quite an interesting idea in terms of this kind of, we're not meant to just like admire the Trinity and the majesty of it, but we're actually invited to be into that dance or that communion with the Trinity, quatrinity. I thought it was kind of cool.
It is. And that real sense of community with Godhead is very intense and strangely heartwarming. Joel.
So I'm going to build on that idea from Gillian of relationship. What spoke to me as the good news is this line, you did not choose me, but I chose you. And the fact that as individuals, we've been chosen by God. We didn't sort of just walk down a supermarket aisle of religions and pick one up off the shelf. God and Jesus chose us to bear his fruit. And for me, that is such a personal thing and so relational. And the fact that God's love is right at the core of this, and he's chosen us to take this love and to pass it on.
Again, warming stuff, challenging stuff, warming stuff. Thank you. Wendy, let's apply it. So what?
Okay. Well, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Common Grace Aotearoa, but I'm on the board of that, and it's a group of people, but really to empower young people to seek out God's justice in Aotearoa. And one of the big things that we do is look at treaty justice. And so from us, a real clear perspective is to choose to put others first, and to choose to see, to have those relationships. What does it look like on the ground if we forgive freely, if we act justly, if we listen deeply, and if we share honestly of our resources, and we stand in those places that are difficult for one another, and we actually honor the treaty, then we honor mana whenua, and so one of the ways we're doing that is in voting for Māori wards, because that's another way. We did a big push on the Treaty Principles Bill. Now we're looking at Māori wards as we come up for local body elections, and it's just saying that this love has hands and feet. It is a divine love, and it expects something from us because so much has been given to us. So common grace,
and
Te Roa.
And the Maori ward concept is empowering, isn't it? And if we sit back and say nothing, thanks for that. Very much rubber on the road. For you, Joel?
My so what is the physical act of putting this into action, and going to that line of laying down one's life for one's friends isn't such a traumatic thing. For me, it is devoting my life to serving God and to serving the people that need my love, and actively seeking them out and actively doing the things which demonstrate God's love and making it relational, making it personal, because Jesus loves me, and I'm commanded to pass that love on and find the different ways that I can do it. One of the commentaries that I read today said that God's love makes both the lover and the beloved more truly human and closer to God, and that's what's rested with me, and that's what I want to take out and put into action.
Yeah, thanks. And you've taken us from that quite chilling call to war to a call to active, uplifting love one for another. So thanks. Yeah, you've taken on some real journey there. Gillian, a final word. Where do you find a so what?
Well, I was thinking about some of the activities I do at school with the students to do with three tikanga. And one of the things I use quite a bit is the beautiful, te ripeke whirina, harakeke, our beautiful woven cross symbol. And I look at that and we make little flax harakeke crosses with that, and do the action of weaving. And we have this amazing whakatoki, which is the Tapestry of Understanding by Kukupa Tera Katane, which I think is really powerful in terms of who we are as a church, and also, in relation to how we might do three tikanga at school. But it says the tapestry of understanding cannot be woven by one strand alone. Only by the working together of the strands and working together of the weavers will such a tapestry be completed. With its completion, let us look at the good that comes from it, and we should also look at the stitches that have been dropped, because they also have a message, which I think is quite a powerful thing. And when I was thinking about weaving, and as we make the harakeke crosses, I talked to the students about what David Moxon says about that beautiful cross symbol, about how weavers, this taps into, I think, what you said, Wendy, actually, or might have been Michael, sorry, of the idea of as the strands cross each other, there's that saying, aroha atu, the love goes out, and aroha mai, the love comes back, as you kind of weave and you interweave all of these ideas together.
Definitely Wendy, not Michael, because it's far too profound for Michael, but it's lovely to sit at your feet and hear these things, the three of you. Gillian, Joel, and Wendy, thanks for being a part of this. It's glorious. Thank you.
Thank you.